talking Oklahoma City Thunder basketball and the wider NBA.
Sam Presti said, lower the hatch, load up the cannon, and get the tank out rolling.
Catch new episodes after each Thunder game and every Sunday night.
This is a house of learning doctors.
Follow the Uncontested on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube to catch new content as it drops.
I mean, a cat and a dog connected together?
This is Lou Dort. You're listening to the Uncontested.
What is up? Welcome to the Uncontested podcast. Coming to you live from YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook on Labor Day, Monday,
Happy Labor
September
Day.
6th. It's about 10:45 a.m. here in Oklahoma City. We are a partner with the Blue Wire Podcast Network, and I'm your host for the day, Jacob Niffen. I've got Taylor Peterson with me.
Happy Labor Day.
Yeah,
Had a
man.
fun weekend of
it's nice to have a day off.
Yeah, that's right. A day off. Watched some college football this weekend, which is fantastic. We're almost through the dog days of summer.
Definitely. Yeah, it's we at least have football to keep us occupied now until
October,
until the NBA season starts, which is quickly approaching. The Thunder will have training camp begin at the end of this month, Taylor, end of September, and preseason games start early October. So we will be watching actual basketball soon. Even before those preseason games, we'll get the inaugural blue-white scrimmage. Hopefully that will be streamed somewhere where we can watch as well. Kind of get our first taste of some of these young guys.
Yeah.
Kind of see what the team looks like.
Some rotations and all kinds of fun stuff.
Definitely. Speaking of, but one piece of Thunder news before we dive into, we are starting our season preview series this week. Today, Taylor and I will be breaking down the Southeast Division, talking teams like the Atlanta Hawks, the Florida teams, etc. But before we get there, piece of Thunder news I figure we need to touch on, Taylor. Been reported that Vit Krejci has officially signed a contract with the Oklahoma City Thunder. We kind of saw the writing on the wall with this way back, I think in June, whenever we heard that Vit had got his contract over in Europe bought out by the Oklahoma City Thunder. At that time, the reporting was if you buy out a player's contract in Europe, you have to get them a roster spot on your NBA team, not a two-way spot. The Thunder's two-way spots are filled up anyways. Vit is officially on the roster. There's been some reporting that says he will spend most of his time playing with the OKC Blue in the G League, but he will be one of the 15 guys on the Thunder roster, which means they now need to cut a spot.
True. Yeah, and like you said, I mean, obviously the two-way deals for OKC are already full. They've already signed two players to two-way deals, and Wiggins and Josh Hall. But I think it was reported that Vit's deal is a multi-year deal, so it's not just a single 1 year deal. It's apparently multi-year. Actually, I think Andrew Schlecht had the details on this, but I think
Taylor,
there's
I just lost your audio.
Options. Oh. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
If you guys are still in the chat, can you still hear Taylor?
Weird. Test.
Maybe it's me.
That's weird. I can cut this part out. Yeah. Okay. Silver says yes.
They can still hear you. You can keep going, Taylor. Okay. I'm the bad one. I'll be back.
That's so weird. Sorry, guys. Yeah, we can cut that part out. But with Vit, I think Andrew Schlecht said there were some team options in there. So it can be there's some non-guarantees, but it is a multi-year deal. So like Jacob said, he'll be part of the 15-man roster. I even think back to, can you hear me now, Jacob?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. I even think back to like last season. And obviously they draft him, and instead of just kind of a draft and stash situation, even as he was rehabbing from his knee injury, I believe an ACL, they actually brought him over and wanted to see his rehab through firsthand. And so he was actually with the team. You know, he went down to the Orlando bubble, just kind of hang out with the Blue and kind of get to be a part of that experience. And So yeah, I think they're definitely very interested in Vit, and it's interesting that he did receive that multi-year deal.
Yeah, I also think it is interesting. I do think he'll play most of his time with the G League. I think that G League team's going to be pretty fun. So hopefully we'll get access there this year again to go and kind of watch those guys like Aaron Wiggins and Vit and Josh Hall and others, and actually get a real G League season. But yeah, they have to clear a roster spot for Vit to be on the 15-man roster. My assumption is that is going to be Charlie Brown Jr.
Agreed.
But that is I don't know. That's just what I think.
Yep.
Maybe it's somebody else, but it doesn't seem like Deck is. I think part of his contract is now guaranteed. Doesn't look like he's going back to Europe, which is
such a strange mix of players there, kind of towards the end of the bench, I guess you would call it. Vit's really interesting too, just because he's based off his size alone. I think he'll play a lot on the wing for OKC, or with the Blue, while also taking on some ball handling responsibilities. But overseas, he was mainly a point guard, almost in a similar sense as to what I kind of expect Josh Giddey to play, like his role with this team moving forward. So it's going to be interesting to watch him kind of get his feet wet with the Blue, continue to gain strength back in that knee, and just kind of see what he possesses. If he's actually an NBA guy, or if they'll just waiving him after a season.
Definitely. All right. Well, Taylor, are you ready to start our season preview series?
Ready.
Let's do it, man. So Taylor and I are covering the Southeast Conference this week, and then every week here on out, we'll cover another division, ending with the Thunder's Northwest division. We'll do our Thunder preview at the end. So, Taylor, we're going to tell the people what each of these teams did last season, kind of some of their transactions and what they did over the summer, what we expect from them next year, what our thoughts on that team are, and then look at the over-under for next season.
Awesome.
We have done this for the past few years, and so we're just going to keep following kind of the way we've done it. Just this time, we're not bringing on 30 guests.
That was a lot of work.
It was a ton of work. All right, first up, the Atlanta Hawks.
This is a fun one.
Last season, they finished 5th in the East at a 41-31 record. Made it all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals, where they lost to the Bucks in 6, I believe. It was 6. Put together a really fun young team, obviously headed up by Trae Young, which was a massive leap for Trae last year to really get in the playoffs and lead his team and get them where they needed to go. So Taylor, will you tell us a little bit about some of their transactions over the summer?
Definitely. They had quite a few free agents, which I didn't actually realize until seeing this full list. But John Collins, which we'll get into, Brandon Goodwin, Solomon Hill, Skylar Mays, Tony Snell, Lou Will. They had a fairly decent amount of free agents. The first, going back to the draft, I think the biggest thing is we saw the Hawks take another swing on a high upside player, and Jalen Johnson from Duke. There was a lot of concerns, I think, regarding, we talked about it leading into the draft, but with his work ethic, just kind of his past history with his AAU teams, with, his partial season with Duke, they take a swing on Johnson. He looked great in the G League, for what that's worth. So they signed him to a multi-year deal. Well, I found this kind of interesting. Sharif Cooper out of Auburn had him on the podcast. You got to talk with him. He
yes,
signed a two-way deal with the Atlanta Hawks. So those were their two rookies. Solomon Hill they brought back on. I don't have the details on this contract. I can click on it, but I'm assuming it was at that minimum. This one was kind of interesting. Lou Williams, after having a really solid playoffs with the Hawks, kind of found his role after he had been traded there the past season. He re-upped with the Hawks, which I think was a solid signing. Like I mentioned, John Collins signed a multi-year deal with the Hawks after the contract kind of holdouts the previous offseason. And they were able to get something done with him, which is huge because he, again, played really well for them in the playoffs and looked really good alongside Trae Young. And speaking of Trae Young, he signed the rookie scale max extension with the Atlanta Hawks as well. And then we had that really weird like trade that took forever to go through. It was like the Tristan Thompson trade, basically, where I guess the Celtics traded Thompson to the Kings in exchange for DeLon Wright. DeLon Wright and a TPE were acquired by the Hawks in exchange for Chris Dunn, Bruno Fernando, and a second-round pick, 2023 pick. And then Chris Dunn, Fernando, and that 2023 second were acquired by the Celtics in exchange for the Tristan Thompson deal. It's very strange transaction there, but they got in on that 3-team trade. And then also the Hawks went ahead and renounced their rights to Tony Snell. So Tony Snell is no longer with them. I kind of forgot about this one. Gorgie Dang signed a contract with the Hawks. And then just some like smaller signings. They brought back their young player, Skylar Mays, to another 2-way contract alongside Sharif. So they're pretty stacked. Oh, and then obviously Clint Capella. He signed a vet extension with the Hawks as well. So they have him locked up long-term to kind of match Trey and Collins' timelines.
Definitely. Sorry, did you mention the Clint Capella extension as well?
Yeah,
Did I just missed that? Okay,
yeah,
I just missed that. Apologies. Yeah. So, and then when you look at their roster for next season, like you mentioned a lot of their transactions, but they have tons of young guys who still have a lot of room to grow. They were without DeAndre Hunter for a long stretch last season. Onyeka Okongwu got injured towards the end of the year, but was looking promising. Also guys like Cam Reddish. So this is going to be a team that I think has the ability to continue to grow and get better. I don't think they have peaked because most of their players are so young. But their flexibility is now gone, right? They've committed their money. This is what they got for better or worse moving forward. They've committed all their money to this team. So Taylor, I guess my big question for you for Atlanta, they made an Eastern Conference Finals run last year. Was that because of the uniqueness of the year and the stars aligning for them, or are they a legitimate threat to the East?
I mean, as with all these situations that these teams find themselves in, it's always somewhere kind of in the middle, kind of in the gray area. But I'm going to go ahead and say that it's more so the latter. I think that they really are more becoming a true contender. We're seeing Trae Young obviously take a big leap into stardom. We're seeing guys like Collins step up and kind of live up to the hype and continue to develop. You talked a lot about some of their young guys. Obviously, DeAndre Hunter was looking really good before he got injured. But even all the other guys in the playoffs, I do kind of like the Capella fit. I wasn't sure I was going to when they initially acquired him, but he looked to fit really well. And like you said, bringing in Okongwu off the bench for Capella and playing him alongside some of these other youth has been really fun and interesting. And they just add another fun young wing. So that's kind of, I think, the most interesting thing I'm going to be watching with the Hawks this season. We saw them kind of take that next step into a true playoff contender in the East this past playoffs. They have all this youth and these young, talented players that they've taken swings on. And they've shown they have a pretty good track record with player development, at least recently. Are they patient this season and kind of just see what happens like they did last season and let these guys continue to develop? Or now that you have Trey and Collins and Capella, some of these guys signed to longer term, bigger contracts, do you package a Cam Reddish or maybe a Hunter or maybe a Jalen Johnson and try and go get another vet, like, maybe more higher caliber than like Lou Will, but kind of a similar type of transaction to help some of these young guys in the playoffs and kind of try and take another step. I think they're going to kind of find themselves at a crossroad, and they can either be patient or they can kind of swing for the fences here and trade off some of these younger pieces and see what they can get in return.
It's going to be fascinating for sure. So the big thing with the Hawks now, the last thing we got to do here, Taylor, their over-under for the season is 47 wins. That would put them at 47 and 35, so 12 wins over 500. Do you think Atlanta goes over or under?
This is where it gets really tough because you have the stronger Eastern Conference. I want to say they're going to hit the over. I really do, because when you put it in that perspective in terms of 12 games over 500, like I think they absolutely can do that. But then you have to wonder where some of those wins are coming from in a tough, in a more tough Eastern Conference. But I'm going to go ahead and stick with it. I think they will hit the over, even if it's only by a couple games.
I think it's a really good number. I don't see them being a 50-win team. So if they go over, I think it's just very
Very
slightly.
barely. Yeah.
But yeah. So are you ready to move on to the next team?
Let's do it. This is another fun one.
Yeah, the next team would be the Charlotte Hornets. I'm getting their stuff pulled up right now. Sorry, I'm a little distracted. We have a new dog.
I was going to say, yep.
That's in the room for during the podcast, and he's kind of going crazy. Didn't know I was getting a new dog. I found him on the side of the road, almost ran him over, so I pulled over and picked him up. No collar, no microchip. So I've been trying to find his owners, and nobody has claimed him. And so it looks like we got a new member of the fam, but he is a little puppy who likes to chew on everything, including my MacBook charger right now.
Oh,
all right, stop chewing on that charger.
Have you named him yet? That's a real important question.
Have not. I just call him Small Dog.
That is fair. Small Dog. That's awesome.
All right. With that being said, the Charlotte Hornets last year ended the season 33-39, good for 10th in the Eastern Conference. They played against the Indiana Pacers in the play-in game and got trounced. Did not go well for them. But the big thing surrounding the Charlotte Hornets last season was the introduction of LaMelo Ball and just how impactful and how great he played for Charlotte. Obviously missed some time with an injury, actually some significant time with an injury. I think if he did not miss that time, they probably do make it to the Eastern Conference playoffs, maybe at that 8th seed, because they did look very good leading up to that. But Taylor, tell us a little bit about what Charlotte has done over the summer.
They had an interesting offseason. I really liked some of the key pieces they brought in. They had a ton. I thought the Hawks had quite a few free agents heading into this offseason. Looking at this list, looks like the Hornets had even more. Just ones to note, obviously Devontae Graham and Malik Monk. They lost both of them due to Monk going to play in LA with the Lakers, and then Devontae Graham in that sign-in trade, or I guess you could call it, a sign-in trade where he was signed by New Orleans. So those are two pretty big losses, but I think they did a pretty good job acquiring, other young pieces to kind of fit in there. Look, just even starting with the draft, they OKC fan favorite James Bouknight ended up going to Charlotte after OKC passed on him. And then they went ahead and drafted Kai Jones, who showed a lot of promise, I think, in those pre-draft workouts and obviously during his time in Texas. And then one of my guys that I liked later in the second round, the Hornets were able to get JT Thor as well. So brought in 3 really solid rookie young prospects. Let's see. Now here's where it gets fun. Kelly Oubre Jr. signed a multi-year contract with the Hornets. Ish Smith, I forgot that they brought Ish Smith in, another veteran presence there. DJ Carton, I don't even know who that is, but apparently he signed a contract with the Hornets.
That would make 2 of us.
Yeah, right. And then
he's a training camp guy, though.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, or the training camp invite, and he'll probably get waived and play with their G League team. So I'm trying to break down. I don't really like how Real GM breaks down these trades, but they were a part of the Steven Adams, Eric Bledsoe draft rights to Jared Butler trade, to the draft rights to Zaire Williams and a conditional 20. I don't know. This is a mess. I'm not even going to try and go through all that. But basically, they got into that big trade involving the Steven Adams, Eric Bledsoe, Devontae Graham. I mentioned him. I'm not sure that they really brought in a ton of pieces in that trade. But they were able to get in, and and I think that's how they ended up with some of these young rookie players. And then Terry Rozier signed a veteran extension with the Hornets, and that's pretty much it. So really, they just kind of got younger, surrounded LaMelo with more young talent around him, and so I'm curious to see how those players develop.
Definitely, and lots of wings on this team now, Taylor.
That's true.
Gordon Hayward can play the 3 or the 4. Rozier can play up to the 2. Oubre is a 2-3. They have James Bouknight who can play 2, 3, maybe a little bit of 1. PJ Washington has been big for them at like the 4. They have Miles Bridges, who's big for them at the 3-4. JT Thor is going to play 3-4. So they have a lot of guys that can play on the perimeter now, which is what you want in an NBA team for sure. They're lacking very much in the big man category. It'll be interesting to see if they make some sort of move there to bring in some sort of big to help them out. But an interesting roster nonetheless. Looking through there with the Gordon Hayward contract, the big Terry Rozier extension, signing Kelly Oubre. I guess they do have Mason Plumlee. They did get Mason Plumlee.
Oh yeah, true. I missed that.
Their team kind of locked in for the next couple of years with where they've spent their money at. They're kind of capped out here, but just like we mentioned with Atlanta, tons of young guys here that have a lot of runway to grow. And so I think that's kind of what they're banking on here.
True.
So Taylor, the moment of truth with the Charlotte Hornets, over under 38.5 wins.
Ooh.
Again, last season they won 33. They went 33 and 39. And last season there was 10 less games because of the shortened COVID season. So 33 and 39 last year. If you split those last 10 games for them, it would be 38 and 44. And their over under this season is 38.5. So it's kind of right really at the same level of last season. What do you think?
Oh, see, this is really tough because you have a player like a Gordon Hayward, if he is healthy, and then you continue to see guys like LaMelo and Bridges and Miles Bridges and some of these young rookies that they acquired, see them step up and contribute. But I just feel like they lost enough veteran presence there that I'm a little iffy. Again, this is like a spot on over under. I really like it, but I think I'm going to go the under, but just barely. Like I could see them flirting with that 38 win mark. But that's a team I think that could come out and just completely surprise us. And we look at them as like the 6th or 7th spot in the East.
I think that's probably fair. I'm going to choose to go under on this one. I think some of the infusion of youth on this team is going to bring them down a little bit. I think Charlotte may be a team looking at taking a step back next season, but looking to take multiple steps forward as their team continues to grow.
True.
Is that fair?
That's very fair. All
right. Well, then our next team, Taylor, if we're ready to move on, do you have anything else for the Charlotte Hornets?
Yeah, I like what they're building. It's a good direction.
Yeah, I agree. And LaMelo Ball is the key to all of it, right?
Right.
Our next team, the Miami Heat. Last season they were 40 and 32, good for 6th in the Eastern Conference. They just missed out on that play-in tournament, and then got swept by the Milwaukee Bucks. Pretty handily got swept by the Milwaukee Bucks. It was some bubble revenge for Giannis and the Bucks. But the Miami Heat, incredibly busy this offseason. Taylor, why don't you go ahead and break down for us what all the Heat did over the summer?
Yes, very busy, and it all started heading into free agency. They had a lot of free agents this season as well, or this offseason as well. Trevor Ariza, Dwayne Dedmon, Udonis Haslem, Miami Heat legend, Andre Iguodala, Kendrick Nunn, who ended up going to the Lakers. And Andre Iguodala went to Golden State. Victor Oladipo, we'll get into him in a minute. Duncan Robinson, Max Strus, a game-winning Summer League game winner, Max Strus, Gabe Vincent, and Omar Yurtseven from the OKC Thunder. It was picked up by Miami, I guess, like on a two-way, I think, and they all were free agents. So the Miami Heat actually signed Yurtseven to a multi-year contract, which I found interesting. They brought in Markieff Morris, which I kind of liked. Signed Max Strus, like I mentioned, to a multi-year contract. Brought back Dwayne Dedmon, and then the big one here, Kyle Lowry, was acquired in a sign and trade from the Raptors in exchange for Precious Achiuwa, Goran Dragic, and a pretty big TPE. Lowry ended up signing a multi-year contract with the Raptors and is locked in long-term now next to Jimmy Butler. Speaking of Jimmy Butler, he signed a max extension with the Heat. And also Duncan Robinson signed a multi-year contract extension. Or sorry, it wasn't an extension. It was a new contract, I believe. So they were able to maintain Robinson, extend Jimmy, brought in Kyle Lowry. That's kind of the biggest things there. But one underrated move that I really, really liked from the Heat, PJ Tucker. Apparently, he was kind of wanting to stay with Milwaukee, according to his Instagram posts, but they're going to pay what he was wanting. So he goes and plays with the Heat, and he's going to fit Heat culture to a T. I really love that pickup for them. And then Victor Oladipo, old Thunder player and friend of Thunder fans. He also signed a contract with the Heat as he continues to rehab, and hopefully he'll get healthy, and we'll get to watch him on the floor as well. Although he's I think we can dive into that here in a little bit, but maybe a trade candidate moving into the season. Regardless, like you said, very busy offseason for the Heat. I really like some of these pickups and acquisitions.
Yeah, for sure.
Or transactions, I should say.
Here is the thing with the Heat. They already were kind of this team, but really doubled down on it this summer. They're just going to physically just beat the shit out of people.
Yeah.
Jimmy, Bam, Lowry, PJ Tucker, Udonis Haslem.
They brought back Haslem. Good point.
Yeah, Keith Morris. This is a team of really just a bunch of goons, right?
Yeah.
They're going to be incredibly physical. They're going to struggle to shoot the three ball, at least a little bit, but they're just going to be extremely physical, extremely aggressive. And I mean, like PJ Tucker said at the Milwaukee parade, there's some dogs, man. There's some dogs.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and it makes sense that that's kind of where PJ would want to go. If Milwaukee wasn't going to give him the contract that he wanted, like you said, go and join some fellow dogs. They're going to be a ton of fun to watch. Like you said, kind of scratching and clawing the whole entire season, and just a real fun physical bunch. But yeah, the 3-point shooting is obviously an issue. They're going to be relying very heavy on Duncan Robinson, as well as Tyler Hero. Hero, obviously, they're still very high on. Weren't willing to trade him for Harden, apparently, right? So he struggled last season. Kind of had a little bit of a sophomore slump season. So I'm curious to see how he looks coming off the bench for the Heat and the role that he plays for this team this season. But they did lose some youth. I'm trying to remember. I didn't mention their draft picks. Do you remember who they picked up in the draft? I can't remember now.
They traded whoever it was for Kyle Lowry, right?
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, no,
is that right?
No, because that was a Chua from last season's or last.
Did they even have a draft pick this?
And maybe
season?
that's it. Yeah, I was gonna.
Oh no, they didn't. The Thunder made their selection.
Oh yeah.
What are we talking about?
Yeah. Good point. Never mind.
Yeah. So no draft selection. Yeah. So they did sacrifice some of their youth.
Yeah.
From their cap sheet perspective, Taylor. Here is I think maybe the worrying thing for me. Their top 1, 2, 3, 4 guys. Jimmy Butler, long-term money, right? Locked up for the next, 5 years?
Yep.
Making an insane amount of money. Bam Adebayo, locked up long-term. Kyle Lowry, locked up long-term. Duncan Robinson, locked up long-term. That is... I'm trying to do math here. 25 plus 20 is 45, 65. 75% of their cap is locked up in those 4 guys.
Wow.
And Kyle Lowry and Jimmy Butler are...
aging.
You could argue Lowry's already on the backside of his prime, and Jimmy is in his prime, but on the downside slide at this point. And so... you have between those two, just looking at long-term money total, you have $300 million locked up between those two guys moving forward.
Crazy.
For next season, it's 36 for Jimmy, nearly 27 for Kyle. That's a ton of money. That's like $62 million locked up in just those two guys, which is huge,
Yep.
Also, as far as center goes, I mean, obviously they're going to play Bam at center. You're going to see PJ Tucker play at center. Markieff Morris and Dwayne Dedmon are going to get some burn. But not a ton of size there, and I'm not sure how much that matters in the modern NBA. But when you play in the conference that does have Joel Embiid, who is trying to make a championship run this next season, I think Bam Adebayo is great. I think a guy like Joel Embiid can overwhelm those types of dudes, though, right?
Absolutely. That's a really good point.
So you have Giannis in that conference. You have lots of guys that are very, very large that are going to be hard for the Heat to defend. But again, I think they're going to rely on that being just insanely physical and playing like playground basketball. I think is going to be their brand.
They're going to play fast, tons of athleticism. Just try and outrun the other team.
Also, you mentioned Tyler Hero and how they want him to make a jump and still are very high on him. Bit of a hot take here, Taylor. I don't know if it's worthy of the sound or not. I've thought a lot about Tyler Hero.
Yeah.
I think his bubble performance is going to be the peak of his career.
Ooh.
I think he came in as a rookie. He lit it up down there in the bubble as a rookie, and people are like, "Oh my God, he's so great!" Blah blah blah. They can't even trade him for James Harden because he's so good and he's going to be incredible. Like, I think it was lightning in a bottle. Maybe I'm wrong.
I like that. Heat fans are going to be coming for your head.
Hey,
but the Tyler Hero hype. He was overhyped. Absolutely. And I'm just curious to see if he can kind of find that role or if he is just going to keep thinking he's a potential superstar and he just kind of flames out in all of his glory.
All right. So again, Taylor, last season, the Miami Heat 40-32. Their over under this season is 48. Which if they hit that means they would have 48 wins and 34 losses. So 14 games over 500. Where do you see the Miami Heat ending at?
I'm just like taking this into context of some of these other teams in the Eastern Conference that did get better. And even then, I don't know. I think the Heat are going to be a solid regular season team. Assuming they can stay healthy. I don't know. This might be a bit of a hot take, but I think they'll hit the over. I can see them being a really good regular season team.
I'm with you. I think health is the biggest thing for them, and especially with having some older guys.
True.
But this is a team designed to win lots of regular season games because on a random night in January, when you're on the road and you're in Miami, and hopefully COVID is under control and you've been out at the club or the bar or whatever the previous
the Miami
night.
flu.
And you come in to play the Heat and you're just kind of going through the motions. And PJ Tucker is literally foaming at the mouth because he is rabid and wants to kill you.
Jimmy's
and you're just like, dude,
gym since 4 a.m.
Yeah. Jimmy Butler just hasn't stopped lifting. He's in the layup line doing layups with one hand and curls with the other. You're just like, dude, I don't want to deal with this tonight. Like, I'm just packing it in. I think they're going to be a team that just exhausts other teams during the regular season that you don't want to play.
That's
on.
That's spot on.
I think it's fair that if they stay healthy, I would take the over on this because I think the regular season is going to be kind to them.
And I will say this. I know we have two other teams, but I think this is just worth mentioning. Like the point you made about having all that money tied up into older players is 100% valid, and I'm in agreement. But one advantage that Miami has over many other teams in the NBA, especially the small market team that we are fans of, the beach, right. And superstars, Pat Riley, he can shuffle contracts around. He can make whatever happens, whatever needs to happen to acquire who he wants and who he needs. He could trade Duncan Robinson to bring somebody else in. Now he's on that bigger contract. He might even pull the plug on Kyle Lowry in 2 seasons. You never know with him. So that's one advantage they always have over other NBA markets, unless you're the Lakers or a New York team. Definitely.
All right. Very good. Let's move on. We got, like you mentioned, we have 2 more left. Next up, the Orlando Magic, Taylor, who last season
of the East,
14th in the East. They went 21-51. As far as the draft lottery is concerned, Orlando landed at number 5. They had, 5 and 8 Is that correct? I think it was 5-8.
Oh yeah. Sorry. Yes, it was 5-8.
Okay. 21-51 last season. And at the trade deadline, which was moved back to March last season because of the weirdness of the COVID year, they made it. Their front office made a conscious decision. This is not a team that we're going to win a title with, and so they pulled the plug. They hit the eject button. They blew it up, traded off some of their vets for lots of draft picks and young, promising players, and have hit the rebuild mode, and then made some draft picks to help out with that rebuild mode. So, Taylor, why don't you take us through? Well, before you take us through what they did during the summer, part of that rebuild mode, I'll just say, because we probably don't have, we don't want to scroll that far back. They traded Nikola Vucevic to the Chicago Bulls for Wendell Carter Jr., I believe some salary filler and like Otto Porter and a handful of picks. One of those picks turned out to be the 8th overall pick in this draft. And you can cover who they selected there. The other trade, they sent Aaron Gordon out to the Denver Nuggets. The main thing they got, the main thing they got back from there was RJ Hampton and again more draft picks. So maybe taking a little bit of a page out of the OKC Thunder playbook here to bring these guys in. So those were the big in-season moves they made last year. Now take us through what their summer looked like.
That was a really good kind of leading us into this because they really didn't do a ton in terms of this offseason because like you mentioned, they did a lot right up at the deadline. And now it's just kind of starting to act on some of those draft picks and kind of starting to build what the future of this roster may look like. So the biggest thing that happened for them this offseason, like you mentioned, picks 5 and 8, they had a great luck in the lottery. You could argue that they won the lottery even if they didn't necessarily get that first overall pick. But at pick number 5, Jalen Suggs falls all the way to them.
Don't remind me.
Yeah, I know. One pick away from OKC. The Magic end up with Jalen Suggs, which is a fantastic pick for them. And at pick 8, another player that a lot of teams were high on is Franz Wagner. They actually brought in Franz's brother, Mo, as well, not via draft, but picking him up in free agency, bringing in the Wagner brothers, which is kind of cool. So obviously those are 2 great young pieces that they're going to try to continue to build around, incorporate Markelle Fultz and like you said, RJ Hampton. Why am I going blank? Jonathan Isaac, some of that youth. Just a fun young team. Robin Lopez signed with the Orlando Magic, which is kind of funny and kind of random. So they have a veteran backup big, a veteran locker room presence. Dwayne Bacon became a free agent. I don't know. Nothing else kind of crazy. I mentioned the Wagner signing. So like you mentioned, I think a lot of their moves happened during the season this past year, and now it's just kind of moving forward and rebuilding. But I like these young pieces and how they fit, like I mentioned, with some of the other youth they already have on the team. You and I both are huge on Jonathan Isaac, so hopefully he can come back and be healthy after 2 years riddled by injury.
Definitely. So some interesting things going on for the Magic here. I currently have them at only having 14 players on roster, so they need to make a move there. They do. So I mentioned that trade with Denver. Part of the salary filler for that was Gary Harris, who is a 26-year-old defensive-minded 2-guard who is on an expiring contract at only $20 million. That feels very flippable this season.
Very. That's a good point. Doesn't fit that timeline in terms of age. Mm-hmm. Still a very interesting prospect that a lot of playoff teams, I think, could be interested in.
Definitely. So I would not be surprised to see him get flipped at the end of the year. They also have Terence Ross on roster, 30 years old, who is under contract this season at $12.5 million, and then next season at only $11.5 million. So he's got a declining contract. Wouldn't be surprised to see that get moved at some point this season by the deadline as well. And but besides that, Taylor, guards, they have Hampton, Michael Carter-Williams, Cole Anthony.
Cole Anthony. Duh, I didn't even mention Cole Anthony.
Jalen Suggs, Markelle Fultz, Terence Ross, Gary Harris. When you look at just point guards, RJ, MCW, Cole, Anthony, Suggs, and Fultz, it feels like something has to give there at some point, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I
That's
don't
a
know
very
how
good
you
point.
develop all of those guys at the same time, right?
Right. No, I agree completely. Jonathan Isaac obviously is a centerpiece. I think they're going to want to continue to build around, assuming he can stay healthy. We saw him, or did that? I think they did already sign. What's his face from Chicago? Why am I going blank? Wendell Carter Jr. To a fairly large contract, showing that they believe in him as well.
Did they
Which
extend
leaves
him?
out. I thought they did, but maybe I'm making that up. Or sign him to a
I'm
new contract.
on Spotrac. He has not signed any sort of extension.
Oh, okay. Well, never mind. Shows you how much I know about the Magic.
I
But
I
the one
thought for some reason they had as well, though.
I know, isn't that weird? I don't.
I'm
Maybe they
looking it
were
up
in
right
talks
now.
about it. Okay. Well, because that leads me to one other player that we haven't mentioned yet, a young prospect that had a lot of hype, mainly because he has a song named after him, Mo Bamba. Very
I
interested to
got
see. Calling. I'm curious if there will be other teams calling for Mo Bamba this season as well, or if they believe in him and keep him on the roster, see what happens, and maybe end up waiving him. I don't know.
Yeah,
But he's
so
fascinating.
online there's some reports about them looking at some sort of extension for Wendell. Obviously, nothing has been signed
But
yet,
nothing
though.
happened. Gotcha.
But yeah, Taylor, I mean, you bring up a great point there. They have Mo Wagner, who can play center. They have Robin Lopez, they just signed, who can play center. Apparently, Franz Wagner is big enough where he could play some center.
True.
You got Wendell Carter Jr., you've got Mo Bamba. That's a lot of guys.
That's
For
a lot of guys.
a league that's trending away from center. So I would also not be surprised if something gave there at some point, right?
Right.
The Robin Lopez signing was interesting. I think that might be a little bit of a bring in some veteran leadership type of
Agreed.
move. But yeah, we've talked for a long time about they've got Wendell, they've got Wagner. Is it time for them to move away from Mo, from
Yep.
Bamba, right? And so that's going to be definitely interesting to see. Lots of movable parts still here for Orlando, and I think that's
Agreed.
their plan, is they're going to move parts. And you mentioned building around. Why am I forgetting his name right now? Jonathan Isaac.
Oh, Isaac.
But yeah, I think Suggs is going to be the center part of this team. Suggs,
Absolutely.
that's my guy. That's my guy. All right. So again, last season they went 21-51. This season, the over/under for the Orlando Magic is
I'm gonna guess 21.5.
22.5.
22.5.
You are very close.
Under. It's all about youth development. Like I said, Thunder of the East. I'm going under.
They might have the lowest over/under in the league. The Thunder are at 23.5.
That makes sense.
All these are via Bet Online as well. I'm looking. Detroit's at 25.5. Yep. Orlando Magic, the lowest over/under in the league.
Wow. Yeah, that makes
Seems
sense.
fair, though.
Yep, very fair.
Definitely seems
Very
fair. All right. So I think I'll go under on Orlando as well. That just makes sense. I think I'm gonna go with you there. You ready for our last team then, Taylor?
Ready. This is an interesting one.
This is definitely an interesting one. Did a lot of stuff this summer. There's a chance there's still more to come. The Washington Wizards last season ended the year 34-38. That was good for eighth in the Eastern Conference. They made it to the play-in and earned a spot in the playoffs as the 8th seed. Went up against the Philadelphia 76ers and lost that series in, I believe, 5 games.
Was it that sounds right.
Was it 5 with Philly? I think it was 5 with Philly. They did a lot of stuff. Taylor, tell us about what happened this summer.
They did. Not as many free agents as are heading into this offseason as some of the other teams we mentioned, but some key pieces. And Ish Smith, we talked about him earlier, going to Charlotte or getting picked up by Charlotte. Garrison Matthews, actually a younger piece that played some pretty solid minutes for them this past season, even if I know some Wizard fans were a little upset that maybe Matthews wasn't used properly by Scott Brooks. Alex Lynn's kind of interesting. He didn't get a ton of burn with them, but became a free agent. And then Isaac Bonga another kind of young piece that showed some promise on both ends of the floor, became a free agent as well. So their big draft pick was Corey Kispert. I'm trying to remember what draft pick that was, but yeah, they ended up getting Corey Kispert. And then the big thing here, well, two big things. One, Russell Westbrook officially requests out of Washington. Apparently him and Bill are still cool. But it was just one of those things where Russ found an opportunity, a way to get back home to LA to go and play for the Lakers. And they made it happen. Chandler Hutchinson was acquired by the Spurs that got in on this sign and trade. Draft rights to Isaiah Jackson and let's see, Aaron Holiday, Isaiah Todd. I don't know. I'm just going to, where was this? Here we go. Basically, the Wizards ended up getting Aaron Holiday, KCP, Kyle Kuzma, and Montrezl Harrell. Some solid pieces. Obviously very interesting to see how they all will fit, but that was probably the biggest move, alongside Spencer Dinwiddie signing a multi-year contract with the Nets being signed and traded to the Washington Wizards. So they replaced Russ with Spencer Dinwiddie. They get those other pieces in return of that sign and trade. Or sorry, not a sign and trade, just trading off Russell Westbrook. And then let's see, Isaiah Todd, they signed to a multi-year deal. Cassius Winston, they brought back on a two-way contract, young player, I believe out of Duke. I could be making that up. And then just some other smaller names like on what will be training camp invites. But yeah, a very busy offseason for the Wizards. Kind of interesting how they revamped their team, but I do like a lot of those pieces. I'm just not sure how they fit together.
I think that's a great point, Taylor. They have lots of stuff, lots of puzzle pieces. I just don't know if they all go to the same puzzle. You know,
that's a good analogy.
Yeah, it's definitely it's interesting for sure. Obviously, Brad Beal's still the absolute focal point of this team. But quick rundown of what their roster currently looks like. They're at 18 players. I believe 3 of those are training camp invites. But you're looking at Brad Beal, Spencer Dinwiddie, Davis Bertans, KCP, Kuzma, Montrezl Harrell, Thomas Bryant, Rui Hachimura, Denny Avdia, Aaron Holiday, Corey Kispert, Daniel Gafford, Raul Neto, Anthony Gill, and Isaiah Todd.
Some interesting pieces.
There's a lot of like quality NBA guys there, right?
Oh,
that
yeah,
top
absolutely.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
they got
6,
like 5
7,
of them
8, 9, 10. Like if you include Kispert, who's supposed to be NBA ready because he came out of college so late, there's like 11 guys there that are like super legit, and that's not even including like Gafford and Raul Neto. You know,
yeah, no, absolutely.
So
absolutely, and
very
some, like, promising young, not a ton, but a couple promising young pieces, and one kind of swing for the fences prospect. If he pans out, great. If he doesn't, it's whatever. And Isaiah Todd, I like it. I just don't trust the Washington front office to handle it appropriately.
Yeah, it feels like there could be a consolidation trade of some of these guys.
Also, another transaction we didn't mention did not involve a player, but bye Scott Brooks.
Oh yeah, very true. Very true.
I don't even remember who their head coach is. Who did they hire? I don't even remember now.
Neither do I. Honestly, it's all kind of bleeding together.
But yeah,
starting lineup for next season, you're probably looking at like Spencer Dinwiddie, Bradley Beal, Davis Bertans at the 3, probably Rui Hachimura at the 4, and then Thomas Bryant at the 5.
Your guy Denny.
Yeah, I know. Hey, I was just thinking about this, looking at this roster, Taylor.
I knew it. I knew you were going to go this direction.
You know my love for Denny. But is Giddey this year's Denny Avdia?
Oh, okay. Never mind. I thought you were going to say, I wonder if the Thunder could get Denny.
I wish. But
that's interesting.
There's a lot of similarities there. Like as far as like skill type.
That's not going to get Thunder fans super excited because then he kind of had some growing pains. But in terms of, you're exactly right.
But he was super young when he came in the league too, wasn't he?
Great point. Yeah. He was, I think he was 19, wasn't he?
I'm looking up his age right now. Denny Avdia is 20 years old. He'll be 21 in January.
So fairly young as well. Coming over from overseas, played a similar role, kind of a guy who could be a lead ball handler, but because of his length and size and versatility, played on the wing for this Wizards team. kind of finally started to put it all together there heading into the playoffs, and the playoffs didn't do a ton. He was hurt there for a while this past season, but no, that's an interesting comparison.
Yeah, he was 6 points, 5 rebounds, 1 assist last season, shot 31% from 3 on 3 attempts a game, an effective field goal percentage, 50%. I don't know. He's 6'9", 210. So Giddey is a little bit taller than him, but I just thought there's maybe some similarities there that were kind of
yeah, I think so. Wes Unseld Jr. is who they got from.
That is right, from Denver.
Solid hiring. So yeah, that's gonna be a fascinating team to watch.
Definitely. Any more thoughts on Washington, Taylor, before we do the over/under?
Just like I said, I don't trust their front office. I don't know what they're gonna do. Are they gonna try and ride out like this? Like you said, just kind of this hodgepodge of solid NBA role players, essentially. Or are they smart and able to flip some of these guys to bring in other pieces that fit the direction of this team? Definitely. And try and build around Bradley Beal and get him to stay, because if not, Beal might be out.
You need to tear it down to the studs. Well, I just mentioned their starting lineup could be like Dinwiddie, Beal, Bertans, Hachimura, and Bryant. Yep. But then your entire second unit would be like
Kuzma,
Aaron Holiday,
KCP,
Kuzma,
Montrez,
Avdia, and Harrell. Like, that's a really solid second lineup.
Absolutely.
And again, that's like not putting Corey Kispert in the game. That's not putting Raul Neto in the game. They have some depth, at least. They just have quality, a deep list of quality NBA players.
Yep.
With that being said, last season they were 34-38. This season their over/under is 33.5. So basically right at their win total from last year. But you have to remember, last year they played 10 less games. So this would have them finishing worse than last year after losing Russell Westbrook. You hitting that over or that under?
Like, it's so easy, like just in a vacuum, to say they're hitting the over. But again, like when doing this exercise, you have to take all these other teams into consideration in the East that they get better. So based off of that, even if I kind of like this team more than I like last year's team, I think I'm going to have to say the under, just because of how strong the East is. Stronger the East is, I should say.
I think that's fair. I think the East did get better. I can't remember. What'd you go on Charlotte? Did you go over or under on Charlotte?
I went under on Charlotte as well.
Under, yeah.
Barely, but yeah.
Yeah. It's difficult, man. I could see them doing okay. But yeah, I mean, the Knicks are going to be pretty good next year. The Brooklyn Nets going to be good.
Really good.
Boston Celtics going to be good.
Chicago Bulls got a lot better.
The Chicago Bulls got better. Milwaukee, we know, is Milwaukee. They're the reigning champs. What does Indiana do? There's
the Heat,
a lot
we talked about.
The Heat got significantly better. There's a lot of teams in the East that I think have taken a step up, and there's not many teams in the East that really took a step back, and so that makes that conference more competitive. And like you mentioned, it's something we really have to consider when doing these over-unders.
Very true.
So, all right, Taylor. Well, we finished the Southeast Conference this week. Next week, we'll do another not a conference, a division. Next week, we'll do another Eastern Conference division. And we got 3 East and 3 West. So 6 weeks, we'll knock these out right up into the start of the NBA season. So, and
then we'll do our annual tradition of Thunder preview podcast bets.
Yes. Speaking of, we still haven't paid off last year's bet. So I'm about to start sending some texts and collecting my payment, baby.
That's right. Get those wings, that pizza.
Oh, yeah.
That fun stuff.
I think I got a Philly cheesesteak coming down the pipeline.
Oh, so there you go.
Very good. Awesome. Taylor, anything else before we get out of here today?
Like I said, happy football's back, but really, really excited for teams to get into training camp here at the end of September. And I'm hoping, like we kind of hinted at with some of these preseason previews with these teams, like hopefully there'll start to be a little more movement heading into the regular season in terms of trades.
We still need a Ben Simmons deal.
True.
I don't see it going to training camp. So
true.
Awesome. Hey, guys, thank you so much for joining the Uncontested today. We really appreciate you. We know we pushed the pod back to Monday morning instead of Sunday night. So thank you for bearing with us on that. We appreciate you. Make sure to check out our podcast wherever you download your podcasts at. If you're watching this live. If you are listening to the podcast version, come join us live on YouTube. Typically, it's every Sunday night at 9 p.m. This was just a holiday weekend exception, so please bear with us. Wherever you get your podcast at, make sure to drop a 5-star rating for us. That would mean a ton. We'll be back on Wednesday with another live pod, and then next Sunday doing more season previews. So make sure you join us there as well. Until then, and as always, thunder up.